Stop letting the news put fear into your mind, because that is what accelerates that into your head, and that makes you feel more vulnerable. And if you're always vulnerable to these things, then think about your next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of trading. You're always going to be vulnerable. Hello guys and girls, welcome back to another episode on the Falcon YouTube channel. Hope everybody is doing really well and you're looking forward to this episode. So this episode we're going to be talking about the coronavirus. Now this is something that has been asked an awful lot over the last few weeks, and this is not a type of topic that I would normally even give attention to or cover, but I think it's really important. So many questions and there's just so much fear around it that I really want to dig into this and address. I'm going to show you a few bits on the charts as well that I think is really important to open up your mind and understanding, so you're not living in this kind of fear-based mindset. What we firstly need to understand is this. What I would love to know actually firstly in the comments, let me know if this has affected you in somewhat way, or that you've been impacted in your trading in the sense that you're now a little bit fearful to get involved in the markets because you're worried about these kind of things. Because the truth be told, look, it's not a joke, it is affecting people. But to think and ask the kind of questions as, is it going to affect my trading? What do I do? Should I trade it? Should I take advantage of the fear? You've got to understand the mindset there of that short-term thinking, utilizing tragic things like this to then capitalize on in those type of situations. You're not going to have full control over that. And what we need to establish and understand is that over these years and years and years, we've always had something different. We've had SARS, we've had swine flu, you know, Ebola, you name it, there's always been something. There's always been war as well. That's not changed. So what we want to do is that we want to find a way to trade a system, doesn't have to just be our system, but a system that is repeatable throughout all of this, because it's very naive for us to sit here and think, you know, after this is done, you know, and hopefully this just clears up as quickly as possible, there's going to be something else. And it will be in another, you know, 6 months or another year or 5 years or 10 years down the line. These things never stop. But it's the fear behind it that is driving this even more, you know? It's the fear behind it. And what the media does is it drives that fear, because the more uncertain that people are, the more vulnerable they are, the easier they are to control. And that is just the truth of it. Rather than going down that rabbit hole, you know, it's just like storms. Why do they name storms? They name storms and it puts fear into it. People think it's to familiarize yourself with it so it's more humanized, but truth is, you know, if Storm Tyson's going to hit you, then you're worried about it. But the truth is, it's just 70 miles an hour winds. But if you think that Tyson is hit in this area, it's more impact, it makes it more dramatic. The point is, there's a lot of fear driving behind this, and when you look at it from the bigger point of view, this is nothing new, nothing's changed. And then what do we see? Uncertainty, we see the market, everyone thinks it's the end of the world, but the truth is, it's not. These things are nothing new. I'm about to show you on the charts. So I wanted to address these kind of things. It's not to, you know, dampen it and think that it's not an issue, because it has impacted people, but to ask these kind of questions that are just flooding in, what should I do? And they're panicking. Think about that type of mindset there. Nothing will change. There's always going to be something new. So you best prepare yourself mentally so you know how to deal with this in the future if something else happens. So guys and girls, let's actually take a look at the chart so you can see what I actually mean and what is actually happening. So let's take a look now. Right guys, so very quickly, I just want to show you something here that I think is really important for you to think about. So I've got the S&P and I have the DXY, and I want to show you a couple of things. So first up, let's look at the S&P. So with the S&P 500, and we look at this overall thing. So what we want to establish is that, look, throughout all of this stuff, rather than looking about how can I take advantage of this disease and this, that, it's not really the right type of thinking in my opinion. Just focus on something that is repeatable. This is not a strategy-based question, this is more so just looking at the overall picture here. Look at what's happened. If we study the most recent impact that we saw with the coronavirus, all of the news in the media, and we look at that little section there, let's go into the daily chart more so. So what do we see? We see this structure that we've been anticipating anyway. So the key thing is the news creates the volatility, not the direction in the first place. And you've probably seen one of our recent YouTube episodes on that. So definitely go and check that out. News creates volatility, not direction, if you haven't seen it on our channel already. But looking at it from that perspective, you can see we've been expecting this channel to sell off for a while. If I was to show, especially anyone in the Falcon community, this bit of price action, if I showed them this, and we didn't talk about the coronavirus, didn't talk about any kind of war or anything, would they be shocked that price action was from here to here? What do you think they would say? If you're a Falcon member, you know, let us know in the comments. Would you be shocked when you see that? Probably not. Why is that? But yet, in the media, in the news, it's fearful because you think, right, the world's selling off, everything's crashing, but truth be told, it's just an impulsive candle. It's just a bit of momentum. It's just a bit of uncertainty. And if we go back, let's take a look at this. Was this coronavirus? I don't think so. It's just a bit of news. So let's go back to here. So imagine when price was moving here, bearing in mind we anticipated this in the first place, but let's just take this off for now. So we was expecting this break the double top, push to the downside, and of course there's different strategies to get involved in this, but we was expecting this to come to the downside. So we start to sell off, we create corrective structure, we push lower. So imagine at this point, let's go a little bit lower to about here. So imagine at this point, what is everybody thinking there on the weekly chart? Look at that. Even just removing this bit of trend here, if you just look at the price action itself, what's everybody thinking? Well, it's broke this low completely. People thinking that it's going to completely sell off. They think everything is crashing. And then when we go back to the daily chart, we can see, yes, it's sold off. Bearing in mind there's a pattern there that we expected in the first place, but that doesn't matter at the moment. And then we start to move up. So let's just play that. So then look what happens. We've sold off, there's the fear, and it moves back to the upside. So if we now go back to this, so that was the price action I was talking about. What's happened here? It's sold off, similar sort of impact. This, yes, slightly more aggressive, but you can see what I mean there. And then what did we have there? We just retrace back up, price starts to trickle its way up. What's happening right now? It moves up. There's two things. We may create the same type of structure as what we saw here, like so. And then we start to move to the downside. Now, of course, you need a strategy to be able to take advantage of that. Picking direction is one thing, taking advantage of that and having a strategy is a completely different thing. But can you see how that this is nothing new? This has been repeating itself for a very long time. This doesn't ever change. And if you look at this pattern here, we was expecting this to go higher anyway, based off of the previous structure. So if you look at the natural nature of the S&P, look at this formation here. If I just put that side by side. Now remember, price action is unique. If you've read Trading in the Zone, definitely go and check that out. But if you understand that price action is always unique because it will never be exactly the same. So I could show you the same structure. I could show you a pattern that looks very similar, but it won't ever be candle by candle because it's virtually impossible to achieve. But can you see how it is the same type of pattern? Now it's not going to be like for like, but you can see how it's got that expanding feel to it. Price moves down, same type of structure, and then it moves the way up. Same type of feel to it, but yet that happened here, right? So we still achieved the same thing. It still had that expanding quality to it, and then it moves to the upside. So we can see structurally, it's doing the same thing. So this is nothing new. So when this sells off and everybody panics, this can just be a correction, and it just keeps on trickling its way up. If you look at the natural nature of this, it moves down, share price is lower, people buying it in areas of value, and then it just keeps trickling its way up. So stop letting the news put fear into your mind, because that is what accelerates that into your head, and that makes you feel more vulnerable. And if you're always vulnerable to these things, then think about your next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of trading. You're always going to be vulnerable. I'm lucky I started off in 2008, so I saw a lot of stuff anyway. So this is nothing new, you know. 2008 was a bit of an impact. This is not an impact. This is just a bit of volatility that just already corrects itself and moves back up. I wouldn't be surprised if it does the same thing. If we get a particular pattern here and then it comes down to the low, we will have a much clearer indication way in advance before that happens. The same way that when this sold off here, we was looking at this expanding formation, right? So when this sold off here, let me just get this back. We have a typical continuation. So we break out of an ascending formation. We know we break out the reversal, we break the double top, push down, corrective structure, push down. And what do people see it as? If you're seeing it as, let's say, a retest, so most people without that, they're seeing this as price has broken below this support, moves its way back up, right? So we're retesting that as now resistance. We're going to come to the downside. but yet it breaks straight back through. Why does it break straight back through? Because this is just an irrelevant line that you've just chucked in because it might have rejected from before or whatever, or there may have been a fib there. There probably was a 618 or something. But regardless of the matter, it's not that it doesn't work, it's just showcasing that these patterns have been anticipated weeks, months in advance. And when we see that, they're much more repeatable because price action repeats itself, humans repeat themselves. That's something that we can consistently rely on. Yet that this breaking through, this is nothing new to us. We're not confused as to why this carried on going higher because we expect it to go higher because it's breaking through to hit the edge of the expanding, which it does. And then what do? We just create another structure that trickles its way up, it creates an extension of it, and it sells off with coronavirus. Funny that. So what you realize is that this has been repeating itself for years and years and years. It hasn't stopped. It won't. It's very unlikely to continue to stop. So stop letting the fear of the market dictate how you trade. Just understand. Follow a system, whether it's Falcon, something else that can repeat itself, something you can rely on without trying to take in all these different factors that you just don't have enough information on, and you're probably too late to it anyway. So rather than doing that, you're just going to burn yourself out. But moving on to the DXY, so having a look at this. Another just quick thing. Let's actually just get the DXY up. So looking at the DXY, another thing here, when you're looking at this as an overall picture, what do we also have? We have this sold off. What was we've been anticipating? You've probably seen some previous YouTube videos as well, us looking at this as well. What we're doing is that we're using a repeatable system and not letting that fear dictate that. So while the S&P is selling off, this is also selling off, but we anticipated this way in advance. So it's not that we're looking at this and going, right, yeah, coronavirus, let's take advantage of the uncertainty and it will sell off, because you're normally too late anyway. Isn't it a coincidence that these things happen right in the exact area? So it's more so about understanding that and anticipating that. And we do the same thing with the DXY. We're doing it with currency pairs. It is nothing new. So I wanted to bring this more to your awareness so you understand that however you trade, you've got to think about, if you're a Forex trader right now and you're listening to this, maybe you're learning a different way, maybe you've been trading for a while, don't let these things affect you. And understand, if you want to trade for the next 10, 20, 50 years, whatever it may be, like I said, do you really want to be vulnerable to these kind of things, or always look for that? Because it's not about the more knowledge you have, the more successful you'll be. It's not always about that. It's about sticking to a system that's systematic. Because let's be honest, whether there was a disease that came out here or something like that, I would still trade this exactly the same way, and it still repeats itself the exact same way. And we can see that it's been tested for years and years. So picking direction is one thing, but remember, you need a strategy in place. And I don't just mean a technical strategy for your entry. You need management, you need psychology, you need everything. So just make sure that you're not considering all these things, because there is no way on earth, and I don't care what strategy you trade, that you go back and you look at every single candle and look at every news announcements that come out, everything, that war outbreak. There's just no way that you've done that, or no way that people do that. But yet in the moment, you're letting that fear dictate every single thing you do. So just a real quick message, because of the amount of questions. Remember, the next time something comes out, focus on something that is repeatable. So guys and girls, I hope that helps. Right, guys and girls, so hopefully that has opened up your eyes so you can see how this is nothing new. It happens over and over again, as you can see from the S&P, DXY, all that kind of stuff. Nothing really changes, and a lot of this we've been anticipating for a while. But what happens? There always needs to be a justification. There always is justification as to why something has to happen. So it's not that the patterns are ruling the markets, it's just that we anticipate these things, and the news, again, it just creates the volatility and pushes it in that direction. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the world and everything's crashing. Remember, a lot has to happen for that. So just think about it from a holistic 360 point of view. Look at the bigger picture. Look at what has happened. Think about it. If you're a trader right now and you trade, when you trade, do you go and backtest every single news announcement, every single time there's been some war, every single time that there's an outbreak of a disease? Do you backtest every single one of those? Or when you look at the charts and you look at the candle shapes, you judge it on a technical basis, but yet you're bringing in all these external things that you don't fully understand, that you don't have full control over, and you don't have enough information on. How is that scalable? How are you going to build your trading career based off of that kind of fear-based mindset? When something else happens, then you're vulnerable in fear again. Or do you want to trade in a way that's systematic, that is repeatable? that you can see that happens consistently throughout all of it. So just something to think about, not really a topic that we want to give too much attention on, but when we get comments flooded on this type of subject, I think it's really important. If you're in the Forex space as a whole, don't let the fear drive you, because it's normally the media's fear that makes it bigger than what it is, when really you just have to see it for what it actually is and compare it. When you isolate it, it becomes more impactful. When you look at it compared to other things, you realize, oh, okay, I actually understand what it is now. So don't let that fear drive you, because that's going to impact you as a trader and you'll always be vulnerable. So guys and girls, I really hope you enjoyed this episode and it's give you more of that opening. I would love to know your number one takeaway. How has this impacted you in your trading? Have you felt vulnerable? And have you learned something from this? But guys and girls, as always, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, so you're always in the loop of the updates that we've got coming. Have an incredible weekend ahead, and I will see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Take care, guys.